We know Adolf Hitler was one bad dude, and many videos have been made outlining interesting facts about him and his dark regime. But there remain a few more facts about Hitler that are worth highlighting, for they are remarkably little known. Here we discover the real Hitler, not only the despot, but the weirdo, the hypocrite, the bizarrely acknowledged individual, and the common scofflaw. Number 10. The Germans could have deported him. Hitler's Nazi party had ragtag and shady beginnings, with matters coming to a head in a shooting and subsequent arrest of Hitler in what is known as the Beer Hall Putsch. As Hitler had failed the now infamous coup, he was brought up on charges of high treason in 1923 for attempting to overthrow the Weimar government of Germany by force. A significant issue in the trial was the fact that Hitler was not a German citizen. It must be remembered that this famous German nationalist, this xenophobe extraordinaire, wasn't even German by birth, but entered the world in what was at the time Austria-Hungary. Born in the Austro-Hungarian Empire and having the status of Austrian citizen, Hitler faced deportation to Austria under German law. Legally, Hitler should not have been allowed to stay in Germany and instigate World War II. His status as a foreign criminal was deemed significant in his trial. Yet feeble were any attempts made to deport Hitler from Germany back to his native Austria. The judge called Hitler an Austrian German on account of the future Führer's World War I service with the German army. Though Hitler was sent to Landsberg jail after being given a light sentence, he was allowed to remain in Germany. Hitler renounced his Austrian citizenship in 1925 and was stateless for 7 years until the Nazi Interior Minister of Brunswick State appointed him as administrator for the state in 1932, making him a citizen of Brunswick and of Germany. Number 9. He was a tax evader to the extreme. Hitler didn't want to pay tax, so he effectively bribed and law-made his way out of it after the German government came after him. He got to the point where he was paying zero tax. So much for his claims of socialism. Retired Bavarian notary Klaus-Dieter Dubon discovered some interesting tax rulings regarding Hitler. For example, he owed 500,000 Reichsmarks at one point. The expensive Mercedes car he purchased prior to starting World War II hostilities in Europe while in jail in 1923 was probed by the tax office, yet Hitler claimed the car was funded by a loan and was used as a means to an end. After his 1924 release, Hitler claimed only a desk and 2 bookshelves as his belongings. His hate literature text of infamy, Mein Kampf, was soon a bestseller across Germany, given Hitler's mandates regarding its mass use and sale. This made Hitler a rich man, but he didn't wish to pay any tax. Sure enough, this didn't fly, and the tax office pressed charges of income falsification and demanded that Hitler pay up within 8 days. All this happened 1 year after he became Chancellor of Germany. Hitler responded by getting the head of the Ministry of Finance to step in and made him exempt from taxation, and the debt was cancelled. There was also a reward that most would call a bribe in the form of 2,000 Reichsmarks monthly income for the state secretary to the Ministry of Finance, who worked it all out. Number 8. There is a bug named after him. Not the Volkswagen Beetle, but a real beetle endemic to Slovenia is named after the disgraced Führer. The beetle was named in Hitler's honor by its discoverer Oskar Schiebel, an Austrian man who was into insects, to say the least, and received a letter of thank you from Hitler regarding the matter. Schiebel was a railway engineer, as well as being an accomplished amateur entomologist with a particular obsession with cave beetles. Native to just 5 caves in Slovenia, Anaphalamus hitleri is now an endangered species thanks to Nazi memorabilia collectors who have pillaged limited natural supplies of this cave beetle. It is not possible by taxonomic policy for the name to be changed, despite its distasteful Nazi association. The beetle is golden-colored and lacks eyes, being a blind cave beetle species. The generic name, Anathalamus, means eyeless, making the species name translate approximately to eyeless one of Hitler. Number 7. He didn't drive. Hitler did not know how to drive a car and thus made use of chauffeur services to get around. He was quite afraid of cars and the possibility of getting into a car accident, and frequently reprimanded Nazi officials and his own chauffeurs for speeding. He required a limit of 50 km per hour, which equates to about 31 miles per hour. Hitler's lack of driving skills were an embarrassment to his public image, especially compared to Italian dictator Mussolini, who could drive and fly. So Hitler made up a number of excuses, ranging from describing driving as a threat to his safety and likening the risk to that of a skiing accident, all the way to terming driving a waste of energy that could be focused on preparing for his loud and lengthy political digressions. Among his chauffeurs was Julius Schreck, who knew how to get into trouble, SS officer Erich Kamper, and the hypocritical Emil Maurice, who drove Hitler to to the scene of his speeches against Jews, but was himself of partial Jewish ancestry. Number 6. He was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. Considering he was directly responsible for starting and carrying on history's deadliest war, whose events included the Holocaust and the Blitz, Adolf Hitler being nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize seems humorous, perhaps a dark comic twist in the face of tragedy. Well, that is exactly what the nomination was meant to represent. Eric Gottfried Christian Brandt, a Swedish member of parliament hailing from the Social Democratic Party, actually nominated Adolf Hitler to be the recipient of a Nobel Peace Prize. The nomination took place only 3 months prior to the Nazi invasion of Poland that sparked World War II hostilities. Brandt was branded a fascist and forbidden to lecture by some associations, seemingly for good reason, for he titled Hitler a God-given fighter for peace and described Mein Kampf as the best and most popular piece of literature in the world. He also said Hitler could pacify Europe and possibly the whole world. What became clear later was that Brandt was joking. He really filed the papers, but wanted to protest the Nobel Peace Prize nomination of British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain and also pick a fight with the Nazis. Number 5. The Jewish Recommender. Hitler was recommended for an Iron Cross for bravery in World War I, which he received. The German soldier who recommended him for the honor was Jewish. During World War I, Hitler was a dispatch runner with the Bavarian Reserve Infantry Regiment 16 and was in the First Battle of Ypres, the Battle of Arras, and the Battle of Passchendaele, and the Battle of the Somme, in which he was injured. He received the Iron Cross Second Class in 1914. Next, Hitler's superior, Lieutenant Hugo Gutmann, recommended Hitler for a higher decoration, Iron Cross First Class, which he received on the 4th of August 1918. This level of award was notable, especially given Hitler's lowly rank. He was only a Gefreiter member, the second lowest level of rank in the German army. How ironic that the notorious persecutor of Jewish people was himself so highly regarded as a brave individual by a Jewish man. Gutmann and his family were negatively affected by Hitler's rule. After the 1935 Nuremberg laws, Gutmann was deprived of his German citizenship. He was later arrested by the Gestapo, but released on the demands of SS officers who knew his history as Hitler's superior. He eventually left Germany for Belgium and then immigrated to the US with his family. Shamelessly, Hitler wore the medal received through Gutmann's recommendation while persecuting his people. Number 4. He didn't start the Nazi Party. Hitler is so intimately associated with the National Socialist German Workers' Party that it might be natural to imagine Hitler as somehow boasting that Nazism was his brainchild, but nothing could be further from the truth. Hitler in no way founded Nazism, but was a drifter who had been in homeless shelter accommodations from 1909 to 1913 before being given the position of intelligence agent in a reconnaissance commando of the Reichswehr, the military organization for Germany, in 1919. Hitler's job was to spy on the German Workers' Party, which soon became the National Socialist German Workers' Party, a responsibility he carried out until he decided that he loved fascism and joined. Hitler was supposed to monitor the party, but when he became the 55th member, things changed. Anton Drexler, motivated by anti-Semitism, anti-capitalism, nationalist, and pretty much anti-everything philosophy, went on to establish the Nazi Party out of the German Workers' Party the year Hitler joined. Number 3. The speaking photos. It is a little-known fact that Hitler posed for a series of rather odd photos while speaking. The photographer was Heinrich Hoffmann, Hitler's trusted photographer, who also introduced Hitler to future wife Eva Braun. The pictures were supposed to be destroyed but survived as Hoffmann thought them valuable, only to be arrested by Allied forces after World War II for war profiteering. The 9 images show Hitler in seemingly crazed, rehearsed poses and expose him for what he really was, just an actor. Hitler could be described as a demagogue, and these photos were taken in Hitler's attempt to hone his ideal public presentation image. He wanted to see from the audience's perspective how he looked in different poses that were designed to influence public emotions and control the audience. He had curious terms for different looks, like domineering and pugnacious. Hitler was very concerned about any errors in his manner or presentation, being rather self-obsessed, to say the least. Hoffmann disregarded Hitler's direct instructions in keeping the photos. Number 2. Hitler refused chemical weapons. One of the greatest puzzles of military history remains Hitler's strange attitudes regarding chemical warfare in World War II. Thanks to the fumbling and tinkering of a German scientist named Gerhard Schrader, who was trying to kill beetles but came up with something far more deadly that was termed sarin gas, a truly terrible nerve agent was available to the Nazi Nazi regime. Yet Hitler staunchly refused to use sarin gas despite the mass murder of Jewish people, other minorities, and resistors of the Nazi regime. For reasons not fully understood but often guessed at, Hitler refused to use the deadly weapons against the Allies, even though he was being earnestly pressed by Nazi agitators to use the gas. Some historians believe Hitler's awful experience in World War I of being temporarily blinded by gas dissuaded him from its use, but it is worth noting that victims of his regime were still put to death by gas chamber. Strategic concerns are a possible reason Hitler did not use the gas, fearing his own troops would be harmed, while the threat of Allied retaliation may also have been enough. Despite Hitler's refusal, Nazi factories stored massive amounts of sarin, just in case, up to the war's end. Number 1. The creepy story of Rosa Bernile Nienau. Some disturbing inconsistencies exist in Nazi history, and one of those comes in the form of Hitler's friendship with a German Jewish girl, Rosa Bernile Nienau. Hitler met her when he invited her and her mother, Caroline, to his house after finding out that the girl had the same birthday as his own, April the 20th. Photos were taken with Nienau hugging the Führer, and soon after, she was found out to be Jewish. Despite that, Hitler continued his friendship with the girl, who wrote to him 17 times from 1935 to 1938. Then, Nazi secretary Martin Bormann told the girl and her mother to cut off contact, which angered Hitler. World War II began the year after losing contact with Hitler, and he began murdering Jews by the millions. The death of Nienau was not by direct persecution, but instead she died in hospital in Munich from a polio infection. So I really hope you found that video interesting. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up button below, and don't forget to subscribe. We got brand new videos just like this every day of the week. For more from me, why not check out another channel I do called Biographics, notable people from history that we look at on that channel, sort of biographies. Indeed, if you liked what we did today, you'll probably enjoy that channel. It's linked to below. And as always, thank you for watching.